you can download the recording from email that I sent, and or I can upload it and then send it over to you. When you start using Salesforce, I don't think you'll find that it's too difficult to get around, but if you just need a refresher as to some of the things that we're able to do, we'd really like for you to be able to take advantage of all the features on there, be it the most basic ones, but I think you'll feel real comfortable knowing that you're able to capture all your contact information. And site measurements and site surveys are a big part of that too.
Okay.
So I know you had a chance to do some measurements. This is kind of the ground game here. I will be providing you with some templates that you can use when you're actually there on site, so you can see kind of the important parts of what you need to be looking at in addition to just the measurement.
Okay.
I am trying to get a template together for these zones. Basically, our idea is that the zone concept comes up with the environments, and that Jeff was talking about, that we create complete environments. So the end goal here is for you to be able to look out on a playground on a customer site and be able to see quickly, whether or not they have all the different equipment in there based on the best all-around or best whole model for creating a playground environment. And what that is, we've basically been able to isolate these into different zones. So we've got a transition zone, manipulative and creative zone, projective fantasy zone, social zone. I see that this was not completed, but that will be for the future, and the templates will help you not only help guide you through the illustration in your mind of how everything should be positioned, the type of equipment, but it'll help convey it to the customer so that they understand that what you're recommending aren't just arbitrary concepts. They are very much designed to be a full playground environment. Unless you're dealing with a daycare, you're probably, and that would be a daycare that was designed properly. Most of your schools, most everybody that you'll be dealing with, they don't take into account any of the zones, but I think they're important because they give you the best overall complete design for the customer, and I think that's ultimately what they're turning to us for as professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Those same site considerations are going to be on the template too. So you'll be able to just give yourself a note to make sure that you're checking for, look for your trees, look for what's in your way, look for fences, buildings, rocks, anything that's on the site that you think could impact the installation, the design, the positioning of all the equipment, and making sure that you're noting it on your form when you're completing with all your measurements.
Okay.
Sun, shade, type of day or time of day, those all should be considerations for you, especially the sun, the positioning of the sun. I have a link that I can send over to you that shows you relative positions of the sun for seasons. Not really needed until you get into a nice big shade project where that would be required. But if the customer wants to know where the sun gets oriented and making sure that they get the best shade coverage, then you'll want to note that as you're kind of walking through everything with them.
Okay.
All underground utilities, sewer, water, gas, runoff drains, overhead power, those are all things that need to be addressed too while you're in there, and just noting them as far as your measurements go, where they would be. Also, even look at the branches, making sure that kids are not able to basically reach out and grab any branches that are within 7 feet of the playground. Natural slopes, valleys, those things are all things that you can address too on your measurements to design around them, and as well any drainage problems, because we've emphasized how important it is to make sure there's no standing water if there is. to make sure that we put in place a way to control it.
Okay.
We can put drainage in if we need to, but in most cases that's the customer's responsibility. Transitional areas are basically where kids are coming in and out of a building or in and out of the playground. Putting high activity components in or around those areas isn't a good idea. Obviously, we wouldn't want to have a set of swings right next to the entrance or the exit of the building. Compatible play zones, creative play and social play. We'll get into that a little bit later, of course, too, with the zoning concept. I will tell you, Carrie, you're the first one to discuss the zoning concept.
Okay.
Something I've been studying for a long time, and I've used in my own personal practices, but we've never really had a medium to allow for training for it, and it's never been completed. So I think you're really going to establish yourself as very much a subject matter expert when you take into account this complete zone design, because people sell parts and pieces and components, but not everybody sells the complete system. So low natural partitions and different surfacing materials. Yes, this is a big factor when we're considering our layout. Let's make sure that we have, if we're going to have a free play area or an open field area, which is also a big part of a good play environment, let's have good differentiation in there, and putting playground timbers that have a very high profile. They're 12 inches tall. Really helps the kids in terms of being able to see whether or not an obstacle is going to be in their way that they potentially trip over.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not going to just arbitrarily be putting equipment out in the middle of nowhere. Space wisely, leaving some open areas. Yes, you can read through this and you'll get a better feel over time. Good playground design.
Right.
You do a handful and reference a handful, and you'll feel pretty comfortable in configuring things.
Okay.
Clear sight lines, emphasize that too. That's something that is also included in that template. That is not, again, something that people emphasize enough, especially your teachers. They're on a playground. There's a lot of kids in a school setting. They can't be everywhere, and in most cases they try to find some relief from the sun, either in shade or on a park bench. Designing with those sight lines in line, thinking about where our benches are in relation to the rest of the playground. Can sit on a bench and see from one end to another. If not, maybe you need to recommend adding another bench someplace where you can offset some of those blind spots in there and allow them to keep an eye on the kids at all times. We don't like getting rid of any landscaping. We can certainly design around it, but obviously we're going to have our certain setbacks for making sure that we're not going to affect the root systems of any bedding plants or trees. Locate away from dumpsters, heavy traffic, and loud noises. I would also include buildings in there, because you will have a certain zone, for instance, with the school district, where you'll need to pull off of a building and make sure that you can't be within a certain number of feet from that building if they have emergency vehicles that need to come through here or come through to access the building. They generally need to get from one end to another without having any equipment in the way. Site is accessible. Wow, sure. Make sure site is accessible for maintenance and emergency equipment. Also making sure that it is accessible for us, because that cannot be emphasized enough, how important it is for us and our equipment, our trucks, to be able to get onto the job site, put the material in place, and get off the job site. We need to drive heavy trucks, heavy equipment over sidewalks. We're going to be putting in rubber, stone, anything like that, concrete. that requires a concrete truck and it has to go over a sidewalk, we can repair it, but in all likelihood, we're going to end up cracking through that sidewalk. So when you're doing your evaluation, just making sure that you're noting on there. Always make sure that we can have clean and free access with, in all likelihood, with at least a dump truck, if not a concrete truck. And then also consider if it's going to be rubber, then you're also going to need to have probably a full-size dump truck then, if that's going to be the case.
Okay.
Tools of the trade. These are going to be items that you'll have to purchase if you haven't already done so. And this training module, should be in the training, the online training folder. So you can print this off. This is what I use. Two 25-foot measures, a couple of 2 100-foot tapes, a set of flags, because you're going to be using these flags as your marking locations. I use these large landscape nails just to go ahead and tie down my measuring tape. So I use those for my corners and going around the perimeter that you'll see. Caution tape, you'll just want to have that just in case. You have any areas, obviously anything that needs to be roped off. Some gloves, shovels, sticks. These are things that you'll be using to check on the type of infill material that they have there, checking the depth, just digging it out. You should be able to just get a general idea of how thick that mulch is that's there. I need to emphasize that if we're going to be putting in equipment in an existing playground area and they have mulch, if it's going in the same spot and you're changing the footprint or the layout of that mulched in area, we are very likely going to require that mulch be removed, scraped off completely, so that we can install on a new area, on a new flat spot that's got nice compacted dirt, and we'll put new fresh mulch on top of that.
Okay.
We usually don't go ahead and recycle that mulch. Tennis balls, there's 5 tennis balls, 6 tennis balls. They're just handy because as you're doing all these different measurements, you can use these to, I use these to help customers visualize what the installation points are. So these 2 balls next to each other, they might reference, a piece of playground equipment that is, like a spring rider, where they can see where that's positioned. And then as well for you, because we're constantly chasing around space and making sure that we're best utilizing it, you can see the dimensions of the equipment and position those as close to the borders or as far away from the borders as necessary in order to make sure that you still have the proper use zones.
Gotcha.
So these really do come in handy, and as well because they're not stuck in the ground like your stakes are and like your flags are. You can just move them around as necessary. But that's a really, really good selling tool, because what customers don't see is they don't get to visualize just how big or small or how everything is positioned as you're walking through it and just discussing it. They really need to have a good reference of how big or small things are, and how important it is to have that extra space that we're building into it so that they don't have kids crashing into each other.
Right.
I would also add in here marker paint, orange marker paint, yellow marker paint. You will be spraying on the ground, on the grass, in a lot of cases where equipment's going, or in the case where we're doing utility locates. They're going to want to know if the area has been sprayed, flagged, if there's any designation for the area that you need to have the utilities marked on.
Okay.
So I forgot to include that in there, but that's a necessity, because you'll be spray painting outlines in different areas just to help out for the customers and also for the locate service.
Okay.
this is what you would look like. I mean, this is what it looks like when you walk out to a site. A customer is going to say, I have no idea what I want. Here's the area. Build us a playground. So taking in all those 16 things that we were talking about, kind of building out an idea of what it is that they would like to have. These are kind of the areas that you have selected as far as being usable. So let's say over in this area, maybe that's a swale where the water dips down because that's where the water has been flowing for some time. It almost creates a stream. Let's imagine that that's coming through there. Let's imagine, too, that you have on this side, maybe you have some bushes that define this area. Maybe on this end you have some kind of obstacle. Maybe you have some existing playground equipment over here, and that's the very edge of that playground. You can't get any closer to it than that. And then over on this side, let's say that this is the access from the building. So there's a door that opens up here, and the kids run out onto this playground. You have these pinpoints marked with your flags. The first thing I do is just walk out there and define what my usable space is. If you have a drop-off, if you have a grading issue, if you have a small hill over here, you're not going to get close to that. You're going to go ahead and position your flags where you think the best usable space is. From there, I take the tape with the big nail and I drive that nail into the ground there. Place my flag here and another nail there, and I wrap it around there. Do the same thing here and continue and continue and continue. And what I'm doing is just taking 100-foot tape here, and I'm running it all the way out. So it's going 22 feet this way. I'll turn around here. Those measurements aren't right. 18 foot this way, 12 feet this way, 12 foot this way, 4 feet this way, 7 feet this way, and then 22 feet this way. Should be, all of these I think should add up to close to 100. So that's your usable space. What is very important is helping to define these angles that are in here, because not every site that you do is going to be perfect squares or rectangles or perfect triangles. And what we have to do is find out what these areas are in here, from here to here, actually from here to here, from here to here, so that when our designers are drawing this out, they know how much room to work with, and they don't put too much equipment in that's not going to fit. Let's say it overlaps over here, and as well, perhaps you didn't put enough in. Because our competitors can do that. They can come out, they can get the right measurements, they can get on their own CAD design and construct a design that's going to fit right in this area and be in budget, and they're going to take your job away. So what we're trying to do is recreate all of this. We know how to create rectangles. It's pretty easy. I'm assuming all of these angles are at 90 degrees. These are all at 90 degrees here. This becomes a rectangle. The space the area that you're using is 12 feet by 18 feet. Length times width, there's your rectangle. And let's say this one up here is also a rectangle. This is 6 feet 9 inches by 4 feet 7. We don't know what this is. So let's pretend that this is the rectangle up here. So this is a small rectangle here. So we know this one and we know this one. We don't know what this space looks like. And Rebecca doesn't know how to design for this because she doesn't know what this angle is, and she doesn't know how this comes across to form these nice rectangles. So what we're trying to do is create a triangle.
Okay.
So the first thing we're going to do here, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways of doing this. The first thing that we will do is we're going to pull a tape measure to help triangulate this point so that stretched a line all the way through here
Okay.
on that line, and then one from here to here, all the way across this way. That little corner becomes a triangle.
Mhm.
So what we're trying to do, let's say all of this were erased. We don't know what that is, and we don't know what that is. What we're doing is bringing that tape measure from here all the way across.
Okay.
See it here? Just drag it all the way across here, and then this one drags from here all the way across. So what it does is create a 90-degree angle right inside here. How do you know it's a 90-degree angle? You have two tape measures, and what you do is from this point right here, set one of these at a 3-foot length.
Mhm.
You set another one at a 5-foot length, and then this point from here to here is 4 feet.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of this before?
Yes.
Dealing with Pythagorean theorem, the way to know whether or not a triangle or right triangle is in fact a right triangle, one of the best ways to determine it is if you have two legs and you know what the third leg is, you know through the side theorem that it forms a right, or you can determine if it's a right triangle because you have one leg that's 3 feet, one that's 4 foot, and then the hypotenuse would be 5 feet.
Mhm.
So if you were to double that too, you could also say that we know that this length is 9 feet, this length is 12 feet, then this length across here is, this length is 9 feet, this length is 16 feet, this length across here is 25 feet.
Okay.
So once we have, and I'll show you another way too, just delivering this as is part of your training, but I'll show you a different way to be able to determine what that is. What you're ultimately trying to do here is find out what this measurement is from here to here, and from here to here. And then if we're able to determine that, then we can determine what that angle is in between, or what those distances are from here to here, and then Rebecca can determine what that angle is in between. But she must have this length, she must have this length, and this must be a 90-degree angle in order for her to determine what this angle is in here with that length that we've already taken into account.
Okay.
This is ultimately what it looks like when you strung everything out. So this tape measurement from here to here is 3 feet. This measurement from here to here is 4 feet. Measurement from here to here is 5 feet.
Okay.
Once we have that, we know that we've created a 90-degree angle, and we know that it's 64 inches from here to here at this point, and then 11 feet from here to here. We've now created a right triangle, and Rebecca can recreate this layout for you.
Perfect.
You could visualize this if you wanted to, and assuming what a 90-degree angle looked like without doing 3, 4, 5, but there's no guarantee.
Okay.
So if this weren't 3, 4, 5, and these weren't lining up properly, and these weren't lining up properly, you would find that your measurement could be off. If this were off by a few degrees, you could find that your area measurement might be too short or too long. And again, talking about exacts, and when you're talking about surfacing, those numbers add up. So they could either, you may not have enough surfacing, or you could have too much. And if you have too much, then you're overbidding. So it really to determine the proper amount. And I will say, if you get used to doing this properly the first time, you won't have mistakes down the road that are costly. And you'll know that you can win more jobs, and even if you don't win jobs, you can turn right around and see what it was that people were offering. In all likelihood, they were either over or under on their valuations, because the cost per square foot is pretty similar to what they're offering anyway. So that is one way of doing the triangulation and getting these site measurements. Here's another one that I was working on. This gives you an idea why it's so important. This is a project we worked on. It was just installed over the last couple of weeks. It was Beth Tefillah, Congregation Beth Tefillah. Nice project. They sent us the site plan, but you can see, if we didn't know what all of this, of how everything was configured, we'd have no idea how to position all this equipment in here. And this is why understanding how these measurements are done is so important, because we have shade canopies that are going over new playground equipment, and we want to present the best option of playground equipment for this setting. And we've got a number of different climbers in here. We've got spinabout, different types of components. This is a ripple rider. This is like a multifulcrum seesaw. We've got a freestanding climbing wall that has a rope climber in between. It's clear, got the clear plexiglass panels. We have a small sandbox area over here with shade canopy. This is more or less for your where any manipulatives would be. Sand and water play could be introduced out here. Over here, this is where your gross motor activities are. This is basically like a spoke design from the top view. Part of our Fusion series. I clean the lines of sight, so you can see this is where more of your robust activity is. Here you're going to have a trike track coming all the way around. This isn't the best layout. This is a program I use called Visio, not what Rebecca uses. So this is what I created for her to follow as kind of a benchmark for determining what kind of equipment can go out there. So this would have been extremely difficult to try and create this on site. But that's a typical situation for you, where people are basically showing you a green field and saying, build me a playground. My budget's $60,000 or $85,000. I have no idea what I want. All I know is these are the kids that I want to have. You design me your best option. You're going to want to have yours configured so you have your zones. Your transition areas are going to be over here. This is where the kids come out. We got plenty of seating here. One here. We got bench. We got table over in this area. We've got shade over all of these. They actually had all the shade, so we just put in components that fit within that shade. Trike track to bring the kids all the way back around. Got some little signs in there. We've got talk tubes over here. There was going to be some musical components over on this side. So this gives you a good idea of just the overall scope of the job, of a typical job for you.
Okay.
If they have a site plan, then that's what you can use to do a takeoff of this. And a site plan is basically the blueprint of the playground area, or in this case, it was new construction. So what they did is send over a site plan. There's a top view drawing, and it shows where they expect to put their concrete, their sidewalks. And then when we have that, we can scale it, and then we can make sure that everything lines up properly, so we know how big to scale this is. But in a lot of cases, they don't. They're just going to have something that looks like a space out on the playground. And this might be similar to what you and Faith experienced in the job site that you went to the other day. It probably doesn't look like this, but this is, unfortunately, this is a very tedious way of recreating that same layout on a piece of paper. So if you didn't have any of these lines, any of these notes in here, what I would recommend doing is kind of picking the middle and doing a cross section. So this is obviously bigger than you usually find, but the shape that's been scaled is 146 feet from one side to another. So you plant your tape here and you run it all the way over here. And I didn't set the increments here, but pick an increment that you think is good based on the scale of what you have.
Okay.
So in this case, it's easy to do 5-foot or 10-foot increments. So let's say you go every 10 feet, you plant a flag. 10 feet, plant a flag, 10 feet. So this goes 10 feet, 20 foot, 30 foot, 40 feet, all the way across.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're going to be doing from there is doing high-low. So you're going to make sure that every time you plant a flag and then run a measurement, you want to make sure these are going to be at 90-degree angles, because if you start doing things like this, then your numbers are going to be way off. So if you start putting measurements like that, or you get it, obviously this shape, this layout is going to be a good bit different if your measurements are off, versus if you're able to do 10-foot increments all the way apart, all the way across. You can go top to bottom, top to bottom, top to bottom, and Rebecca can use this to recreate the design. So, that's one way of doing very unusual shapes. Oblong, kidney beans, obviously, but in most all cases, you're going to see something more like this, where you actually have some squares already in place. You have some straight angles already, or some straight lines in place. If you're replacing an existing playground, there's a lot of folks use railroad ties, and they run them in continuous courses all the way around. So think about, again, trying to create rectangles, anything based on your configuration, to help carve up an area. So if you didn't have any of this, if you walked out here and the only thing you saw was this, hold on here. I'll just make it easy. If you had just the shape, then try to visualize hold on there. Sorry, I wasn't very prepared for this. This is in all likelihood what you would see. Be something similar to this. When you're walking out, taking your measurements, try to cut that up into usable pieces.
Okay.
So here you got a rectangle, here you got a rectangle. This is supposed to be a rectangle over here. But try to carve these up into rectangles, and it'll be much easier for you to get your measurements from. And it'll be a whole lot easier to take, to convey to a customer how everything is going to fit together too.
Right.
So let's say we got rid of that. you have rectangles now that you want to start using. So you're going to come over here, and we know this is 38 feet. You're going to take tape measure from here to here. Then you're going to take it again from here to here, and then all the way around. So we know what all of these measurements on the exterior are. And then going back to that side theorem, what we're doing is breaking these up into triangles, triangle, 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 triangle. I don't know if you recall from geometry, if you know the three sides of a triangle, you can determine the interior angles. You're able to draw these points together and take this measurement from here to here, from here to here, from here to here, this point to this point, this point to this point. Now you can create, and Rebecca can create these squares and recreate or reposition them here, on CAD.
Okay.
So you would also need measurement here. And what I do is I will go ahead and label these. So this will be point A. This will be point B. This will be point C. And this diagonal from here to here is A to C. This point here is D. This is D to B. And then just write your notes over on the side. Put them somewhere on the side. A, B, C, A, C. And that way you're able to keep everything together. So you know what measurements precisely you need to have. And as long as you have all of your diagonals in here, you should be able to recreate this layout.
Okay.
Because now you have a big wide open area over here that you can use. You can have a main play structure. This area is 40 feet by 45 feet. This is the end goal of what you're trying to do, is make sure that this is that area that was created. Here's a play structure that doesn't fit within there, and then you turn right around and you drop one in that does fit. And there isn't enough room. I mean, there isn't too much room, and it's not short anywhere else. So with this layout, we could have very easily dropped in a 10 by 10 sandbox, and then we could have put a nice little play structure in here. It wasn't too much, and it wasn't, it wasn't too little. We have a lot of open space in here. This is very much likely to sell. This is obviously going to require your folks to do some site prep in order to make this all fit. Not to mention making your customer very upset if it doesn't fit, in addition to your installer.
Right.
This is also a nice little nice tool using those tennis balls. You know that everything is going to require 6 foot worth of additional space. So again, with the tape measures and the tennis ball, this is 6 foot here and this is 6 foot here. We know that this piece of equipment is going to be too close to these walls.
Okay.
So what we have to do is just back it away, back it away, back it away until we have 6 feet from here to here, 6 feet from here to here. Drop the ball in place, and now you know where a piece of equipment is going to be, where it's going to be located.
Gotcha.
So does that? How does that sound? Right? Do you have any questions?
Not right now. I may once I actually, have a site that I need to measure, but I'm good right now.
Okay. Yeah, this module is tricky. Doing this 3, 4, 5, that's tricky. Thinking about what we just talked about, we could accomplish the same thing by, let's say, this was erased and this was erased, and we knew this layout here. Actually, let's go back up here. Go back up here. Doing that same side.
Okay.
If we just came all the way around here, you could very well make this a point and measure from there to there, measure from there to there. Let's go ahead and measure from here to here. You can square this one off and make this, just make that a rectangle.
Okay.
We know our measurements all the way around here. You could make this a rectangle. You could you know, for what it's worth, you can actually take a tape measure and run it all the way down here, make this a line. Now you've made this entire thing a rectangle.
Okay.
And then once you did that, then you just go from here to here and here to that point where you created your rectangle, and that can all be recreated. So you don't have to follow one course of, you know, of laying all this out. I mean, there's no one methodology to do it, but the end goal is to make sure that all of these things become triangulated, because that's what you're trying to do, is make sure that you've got all sides basically to the triangle is what you're doing.
Okay.
So if you're able to do that, you're going to make everybody very, very happy. And you're gonna be able to create, you know, offers that fit. They fit the layout. They're custom designed based on their site characteristics, and you're gonna have winning proposals.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop recording here.
Okay.